All right. Hello and welcome to this episode. In this episode, I want to talk about the idea of OCD and anxiety changing themes. And so, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Matt Cotty, and I am a licensed clinical social worker and the founder of Restored Minds and the creator of the AAA response. So, when it comes to this idea of OCD and anxiety changing themes, this is something that some people struggle with, and some people, just kind of have a central theme that they wrestle with. But for many people, like their fears shift themes over time. By the way, if you're looking for help or support, we have some resources down in the notes for you as well to get you started. So just want to make sure to check those out. Also, if you could really help us out by liking and subscribing, as well as clicking the notification and even leaving a review on iTunes or a comment on YouTube, that just helps the algorithm of the show. So we'd really appreciate your support with that. When it comes to OCD and anxiety shifting themes, though, what we're really talking about is the idea of the content of the fear changing from one thing to the next. And sometimes this really, you know, um, sets people back because a lot of times the first encounter we have with a bout of anxiety or OCD, we have this real struggle trying to figure out, like, hey, how to get better and how to really reclaim our life, how to take back control. And we're learning all these skills. We're learning about exposure, response, acceptance, all this stuff. And then a new theme shows up, and we immediately equate that it's going to be like, oh God, like this is going to be just as long of a struggle or just as terrible and all that. And, people get overwhelmed. Oftentimes in group, what will happen is someone will like be sharing, about their fears, and someone will be worried, like, oh my gosh, like what if I get that fear, what if I have developed that kind, and what if, and they have a fear about getting another theme or another fear popping up, and just all sorts of stuff. So I want to talk about just that concept, and I want to try an analogy here with the Wizard of Oz. And I know that might sound a little crazy, but just stay with me here, because I think it does justice to this concept very well. So I was talking about this with people that are in my private community, and this analogy really resonated well. So I thought I'd share it here. Um, when it comes to our first fear, you almost have to kind of think of it, or like the thing that we're really struggling with. And that could be anything, it could be any form of OCD, it could be panic attacks, it could be health anxiety, right? Again, because really we look at the spectrum of stress related problems as the same thing, right? It's not like bouncing, thinking that you have like 15 different disorders and you have, oh, I have this theme, this theme, this theme. It's like, no, that's not correct in my opinion, right? And I know there's going to be people that disagree with me, and that's totally fine. But if we look at it like that, I think it prevents us from really getting better, because then we think we have like, we have to address like 18 different things, and that's just not, in my experience, how it works, right? It really is kind of understanding the mechanism of this loop that we can get caught in, and of this anxiety loop, right? And as long as we're engaging in behaviors, that loop is going to continue. And so the end goal is really just to eliminate all behaviors. So, and again, you got to understand that that fear loop in your brain thinks it's helping you, right? So when it throws out a what if thought or a scary thought, and then you get anxious, and then you do a behavior, and then it feels better, you get a hit of dopamine in your brain, and that part of your brain, right, that ego part, that voice in your mind, is like, oh good, we kept them safe, we did a good job, right? And so therefore it keeps throwing up those thoughts. And eventually you start learning, okay, well, I'm not going to engage in these behaviors, and I'm going to break the loop about that specific thought. And your brain stops throwing up that thought because, it doesn't need it. But then it switches and it tries a different thought. So maybe if you wrestle with fears of driving, all of a sudden you move to, harm, violent images, or contamination, and or health, worries, all that stuff. It's all the same loop. It's all the same loop. And when in the Wizard of Oz, it's been a very long time since I've seen that movie, but at the end, the four people, walk into the I don't know, the final room or whatever it is, and they see this big head up there, right? And it has all this fire and it's screaming and hollering, and it's very scary, right? And lo and behold, they find out that it's just this like little dude behind this curtain, right? And it's just this kind of, scary image that he's putting up for display. And when you're afraid though, it has control over you, right? So when you're afraid of something, it's the easiest way to have control is to be afraid, right? When your fear is controlling your life, you aren't in control of your life, your fear is, and you're just doing whatever it says. So when it comes to shifting out of that, right? We what it, like I the best analogy I could use is like just imagine that dude, instead of having like a big green head, that he switched it to an orange head or a yellow head or a dragon, right? But the idea that the image changed, right, that he's putting out there to scare you, but it's still the same guy behind the curtain. If you keep looking at that image and all of a sudden you walked in and it was a green head and now it's a red head and you're like, oh my gosh, this is a red head, and now it's yelling and scaring at me. Now this is a whole different thing. It's like, no, it's still the same guy behind the curtain. You can't get caught up in focusing on what that projection is happening, right? On what projection is happening right there and what he's putting out in front of you to try to scare you. Whether it's red, blue, yellow, orange, doesn't matter, right? It's still the same exact little guy that's harmless right behind the counter. And when we talk about this idea of changing themes, it's important to remember that because just because a new thought pops up, it's still the same mechanism. It's still the same exact mechanism. And the principles stay exactly the same. So again, it's figuring out what behaviors you're engaging in and eliminating those behaviors. And that's why we teach that, the AAA response, and really anchoring into that solution focused approach. But that's the principle right there, is like it's the same mechanism. So whether the theme is, one thing or the next is essentially irrelevant, right? Because if you're getting caught up on the theme, it's you're still looking at that scary head that's there, and you're worrying because it's changing, that somehow that means something different. It's like, nope, same guy, same curtain, right? And that's why reshifting your focus and remembering, oh, it's the guy behind the curtain, right? Oh, it's the OCD. Oh, it's anxiety. Doesn't matter what theme is popping up. In fact, the more themes you can see and face, the more confident you're going to be that this is really what it is. So when a new theme pops up, it's like, okay, cool. I know what this is. I've been down this road. I get it. And really feeling confident in that. So when it comes to changing themes, again, don't get caught up in the content. It's okay if it changes themes. In fact, it's probably going to try to change themes, because if one theme isn't working and you're not engaging in behaviors, it's going to try new themes to try to stay alive and keep that loop going. So it makes sense that it would try that. So with that said, when it comes to OCD and anxiety changing themes, don't get caught up in the theme itself, right? Go back to the same principles that have always applied and recognize it's the same loop. It's the same little guy behind the curtain, same with the Wizard of Oz analogy. And so I hope that analogy is helpful, because if you see it like that, again, you're going to be less afraid of that theme that's popping up here and just going back to remembering what this really is. And when it comes to OCD and anxiety and that voice in our mind. So hope that helps. And with that said, I wish you guys a great week as always, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Take care.